name is Fred Majiwa and I work for St. John Ambulance. St. John Ambulance have a very long history in Kenya because as early as 1923, the organization had been introduced in the country. And during that time, St. John was existing only within Kenya Police, where it existed up to 1928. Where at that time it became a civilian organization. So when you look at members of St. John Ambulance, you'll always see them wear uniform that sometimes resemble the police. So that's why that history comes from. Our work as a first aid and health charity go hand in hand with what the military does. For instance, whenever there is a big disaster, after they have put everything under control, we normally come and give first aid and evacuate the injured to the hospital. And that's why we have so many volunteers. We have over 22,000 volunteers across the countries. And these volunteers are normally the face of the organization. And we say they are the backbone of this organization. We only have a skeleton staff who help in professional services. So that's what we do as an organization. In training, we also do a lot, starting from first aid to life support training. We even train small children who, during their holidays, they have a lot of free time. So we invite them, we train them on basic life-saving skills and how to be safe at home. We also train even nannies who take care of children so that the homes can be safe, people can be safe, and that's all we do at St. John Ambulance.
So we have two types of what? Epilepsy, where we have minor epilepsy and major epilepsy. So let's start with minor epilepsy. So minor epilepsy, we have signs and symptoms that you can tell this person has what? Epilepsy. That is hiyo kifafa. Sawa sawa. Ya kuonyesha mtu ako na nini? Ako na kifafa.
We have also stationed, we have set up some highway care centers, especially at the black spots. So at these black spots, we have a center that is well equipped with first aid and accident rescue equipment. And we have also trained the community around there on how to use those items to help victims of road accident. Because you know, accident is a big problem in this country. Each and every time you hear a vehicle has crashed, so many people have been injured. But you find that when people go there, they really want to help, but they don't have the skills. So they end up compounding the injuries and the problems of those who could have ideally survived. Normally, if you are at home and you call St. John, we'll only look at two things. Is there life in danger? If there is a life which is threatened, we may not really look at the money, the amount you are going to pay. But if it is mild illness, maybe hospital appointment for maybe chemotherapy, those ones we normally have a charge, which normally averages about 5,000 per trip. So once you call, you will be charged if it is not urgent, but if it is urgent, maybe life is threatened, we will just provide that service for free. Because life is very, very important, and you cannot negotiate over the phone when life is threatened, because it's very sacred. In the training, we use a lot of equipment to do this kind of training. We have visual displays, we have laptops, we have dummies, and each of the students that participate in our training, we give them a first aid book so that they can always refer if they forget any kind of skills. We use blankets so that during the practicals the students are not dirtifying themselves and they are able to enjoy the session. Any person can join this training. It's not a brain surgery. It's a simple skill that any person who understands basic language can do. And once they undertake the training, at the end of it, we test to ensure that the people who have done this training are certified and they can save life appropriately. At the center of our operation, we normally have a central room we call a dispatch. This is where we receive all the kind of calls for emergencies, and we dispatch the ambulances, and that's where the name dispatch comes from. So the types of call we receive are in 4 types. There are runners, people who just come running and give us information. The information we get through social media, when people post on YouTube, on Facebook and on Twitter, we are able to track them using keywords. And there are people who make calls, and finally, there are those calls which have been transferred to us through other agencies when they are overwhelmed. So these are the 4 kinds of calls that we receive, and we receive them in a central room we call a dispatch room.
My name is Emma Nyabayo. I work with St. John Ambulance. I'm a dispatcher. I deal with emergencies. So whenever calls come in, I receive emergency calls. I question the clients, know the situation. There's also a protocol that we normally follow when you are handling the emergency call. So I normally follow the lists. For example, when a call comes in, you first introduce the agency. I can give an example, like let's say I say thank you for calling St. John Ambulance. Then I introduce myself, then ask the client's name. After the client has given us their name, we ask for the location. First you ask for the emergency that they are having, where it happened, when, how. Then you ask for the location. After you get the location, get the details exactly, the condition of the patient as at that moment. Once you know the condition of the patient at that moment, then I'll be able to ask where we're evacuating the patient from and where we're taking the patient to. That will depend. It might be a hospital to hospital, or from the home to the hospital, or from the hospital to home, going back to their home. So also for the pricing, good afternoon, control room, am I speaking? All right. Hello, my name is Emma from St. John Ambulance. How may I assist you? Yeah? 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 Like when I'm handling a call, you'll see me writing somewhere, like on a notebook. Then I'll give my driver and the EMT the directions of the place that they're going to evacuate the patient from, where they're taking the patient to, at what time, when, because there are some people who book before the incident. So I just give them the whole information because they need it on the site that they're going to. Then I'll dispatch them according to the time that the emergency is being dealt with. So if it's an emergency that is being handled with at the moment, I'll just give them the list of the things I've taken, the name of the caller, the number of the caller, patient's name, age, condition at that moment, and if they have a history of any other condition or any other chronic disease, I'll give them. Then they'll rush to the duty. Normally they take at most 15 minutes to respond. Yes. Sometimes you'd find callers who are very hysterical. You really need to understand how to calm these people down. But if you do not have those skills, you might be overwhelmed and be unable to handle such a case. Yeah. What you normally do there is just understand the situation. You're not the emergency, but you're trying to assist them. So you should not also come up. For you to be able to calm down a person who's very rude or very hysterical, you also need to calm down. You have to ensure that your state of mind is very calm to be able to assist the other person. And as much as they're very rude or they might even go way overboard, Some of them can even abuse you along the way. But you need to understand this person is handling an emergency. Maybe it's their first time, they have never handled this kind of an emergency. So they're really tensed. Understand their situation. So deal with it like it's an emergency for them, not for you. Sometimes you might find someone is overweight, but they are not willing to let you know the information. So you get to the scene and then you find, they tell you, that person was really huge. So sometimes you find you've sent, let's say the personnel that you sent over there to handle the situation, they are unable to lift, so they have to get, but at the same time, I always tell them to get prepared for anything. So they always get help. Like they are trained to also ask for assistance from those people who are surrounding there, so long as they have ensured there is safety for the bystanders there.
My name is Richard. I'm an emergency medical technician in St. John Ambulance. Well, I have been an EMT for 3 years now. I started in 2015. Yeah. Well, mostly I have come across accidents. I won't say this has come from a deeper place within me, but mostly I've been seeing accidents and have been willing to help. So I think that was a driving motive for me to actually decide to want to do this course. Well, so far the work has been generally great. I have had a lot of experiences. I can't say I have not seen people die. I have seen people die, which is a very worst case scenario, but generally everything has just worked out so far well. In here, I am very much possible to actually take you through what is in the patient compartment. So if I may. We'll start with this compartment. We have some gadgets that we actually use when we're actually attending to a call. This is called a cervical collar. Some call it a C collar. It's used to actually restrain a patient's head when you actually mostly probably think the casualty you're attending to has some neck problem or neck injury. And then here we have a pulse oximeter. It is also used to take saturations. It's called an SpO2 machine. It actually reads the saturations of oxygen in your body and also reads the pulse in your body. Here we have something called a glucometer. Its function is to actually check the blood level, the sugar level in your body. This is how it looks like. It's called a glucometer. In here are sticks. You actually see them from in here. It's used to check blood sugars in a person who's actually suffering from diabetes. Does that roll camera? Here we have something called an aid. Most people have actually been wondering how this thing really works. It's a bit complicated, but when somebody is actually taught how to go through it, it becomes very easy. There's space for battery in here. Once you actually have the battery in, the plugs through it are very simple. You only just have to follow instructions because it actually gives instructions by itself. Here we have a ventilator. If you're able to zoom in, we have a ventilator here. A ventilator is mostly used for persons who are unable to breathe by themselves. So this one actually assists them in breathing. Here we have a suction machine. A suction machine is mostly used when somebody has secretions and they are unable to actually get rid of the secretions by themselves. So this machine, we use it mostly to suck secretions from their mouth, mostly to avoid them getting choked. We have a monitor here. The monitor itself is used to assess the patient's condition, not mostly condition, but it could actually take an EKG of a patient. It also checks for vital signs like blood pressure. It also checks for temperature and also oxygen saturation. In here we have several things. In this box we have some bit of drugs here and there that we actually use to actually take care of a patient. And then still in here we have dressings, mostly because sometimes we tend to actually attend to road traffic accidents or accidents that actually involve blood. So we have things actually we use to get rid of or to avoid a lot of blood loss. And then we have an emergency blanket here, some still more drugs in here, plasters, we have cotton, we have gauzes. So most of these we actually use to stop blood and then to actually have the patient go to hospital safe and sound. In here we have fluids. We have a variety of fluids in here. We have 5%, 10%. Most of the fluids that we have here are for different purposes. So that is actually taken in place. And then in here too, we have granulars, we have giving sets, we have syringes, we have needles. All these are actually necessities that we require when taking care of a patient. Now the AED, if you've ever heard of somebody who's collapsed and they don't have they're not breathing by themselves and they don't have pulse, this one is used for that purpose. When you actually go to your patient and find out this patient is not breathing and this patient does not have pulse, so you actually have this on and then you attach pads. There are pads that will actually tell you to attach pads. You pull your pads from, it has a pocket here, you pull pads from the pocket and then you attach. As a place of attaching, you attach here. Once you attach the pads here, it will tell you to place the pads on your patient. So once you place the pads on your patient, the AED itself is able to assess and read the patient's heartbeat. If there's no heartbeat, it will give you a go-ahead to shock the patient. But if there's a heartbeat, it will tell you shock not advisable. So that is the main purpose of an AED. Now, here we have something called a BVM. In full, it's called a bag valve mask. This one is mostly used when a patient is breathing but unable to breathe by himself sufficiently. So we use these to actually give some more complementary oxygen so that the patient is able to get the precise air or the precise amount of oxygen that is supposed to go inside the body. Now this one is an adult BVM, and then we have a pediatric BVM. A pediatric BVM is for kids. It's just a shorter way to say kids. Now pediatric stands for kids. And then here we have something called an oxygen mask. This one is called an oxygen mask because it is used to deliver oxygen, but mostly many people mistake it from the normal oxygen mask, and there's a normal oxygen mask and there's an underbreather. So this one is an underbreather, but mostly people mistake it for oxygen mask. This one is good because it has a reservoir to store oxygen, but the other one, that is a normal one, which is almost right here, has no reservoir. See this, it doesn't have a reservoir, but this one has a reservoir. That is why this is called an underbreather mask and this one is called a normal mask. This is to just supplement oxygen, but this one takes longer for people who are unable to breathe mostly by themselves.
Naitwa Moses Kivara kutoka St. John Ambulance. Nafanya kazi ya emergency. tumeenda RTA, tumeenda tunaweza Tanzania, Uganda, Mombasa pia tunaenda. Challenge tunapitia nyingi, unapata jamu, unapata mwingine anamkufungia, unamweka silent, inalia na mgonjwa wako hali mbaya. Ninawaambia wakati wanasikia gari imeweka silent, kwa sababu si kupenda kwako kwa huyu mtu kuweka silent. Wakisikia wanakuondokea kwa barabara, tunapita vizuri, tunafikisha hospitali vizuri, mtu asifie kwa gari. Kesi kama hiyo unajaribu kukimbia, lakini usikimbie sana, unakimbia 80, 60. Ndio jaribu kufika hospitali haraka, mgonjwa ambie ndio ahurumiwe na madaktari. Ndio wewe driver unakuja, lakini mpaka uende kwa shule, uingie kwa class, ufundishwe mambo first aid. Wakati umefundishwa first aid, unaweza pewa gari ambulance, kwa sababu unaweza saidia mwenzako nyuma, kwa sababu pengine mnakwanga wawili. Umsaidie, uweke kwa gari, ndio ruti uanze kuendesha gari. Ukipata kama gari imeanguka mahali watu kuna mainjari, lazima msaidiane, mweke mpange kwa gari, ndio mkimbize hospitali, tena mruti hapo hapo. RTA gari imeanguka mahali, unapata watu wameumia, wako mainjari, wengine wameumia kichwa, wengine wamekatwa mikono, wengine wamevunjika miguu. Msaidie, mtotoe, mweke kwa gari, ule ako mbali mbaya kabisa, ndio mnakimbiza kwanza, ndio mnarudia wengine.
That's also another challenging part. You'll find that a client is called, you're really trying so hard to assist them. You've tried all you can, but they don't make it eventually. Sometimes it really stresses you out, but there are ways you cope with stress. Personally, if I feel like I'm overwhelmed, I take a stroll, like I pace up and down. It really assists, yes. But normally we get to have a debriefing. Yeah.
Well, I would say this career and probably the EMT or the paramedics as a whole thing, we and let's say probably the guys who are actually responding as probably police officers, we work hand in hand, because without us it's probably sometimes difficult for them, and without them it's probably sometimes difficult for us, because you see, once you're actually going to, let's say for instance the scenario that Dusit, you cannot be called to go to attend to disaster at Dusit, or probably for people who have actually been injured, and then you expect to go there and feel like you're safe. You will need them around for you to be safe, and they'll also need us around for them to be safe. So it's a mutual benefit for them and for us.
For me personally, I'd advise that person to really think about it, and if they really feel they can be able to dedicate all their might to this kind of job, then they are good to go. It really needs more of your time. It also needs a dedication, and also you must have passion for it. Because if you do, and if you really want to become an EMT or a dispatcher for emergencies, you really have to have the passion. Because I think if you do not have the passion, then you'll not be able to handle the scenarios. You'll feel like it's overwhelming. Next, handling the clients will be a bit difficult for you, because you'll be handling them in that you're thinking, this is just a job for me, at the end of it I need to be paid. You're doing it because you're getting paid. But personally, I'm doing it because I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I feel good when I save lives. There's that feeling I normally have at the end of the day. As soon as I close work, there's a certain feeling of joy in me when I go home and I feel like, hey, today I evacuated, like successfully evacuated 3 patients. They got to wherever they are. And then I'm really happy when when I get back to the clients. Normally I do call. Let's say I give a span of, let's say if they called in the morning, I normally call either during the afternoon or in the evening to really know if my team handled them in the correct way, if they got evacuated in time. The feedback that I'm getting is really good.